Hello, hello, hello. All right, we are ready to get started. Maybe, let me tighten this up. It's gonna fall. There we go. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the Confidence Catalyst Portland Fall event. We're so happy to see you all here. Yes, yes. This event is just one more iteration of what it has evolved into over the last few years. So some of you are here for the first time. Again, thank you so much for coming and checking us out and seeing what the Confidence Catalyst is all about. I'll give you a little history. This event started in 2017 as a Zoom room that was hosted by the one and only Rakshana Treem, who's right here in the front. If you don't know her, you need to meet her when we're done here. And former business partner Lainey Grass, who both had or have coaching businesses for women. And they created this event as a space for their clients to share their stories, what they've been through, adversity and building resilience and what has got them to where they are in life. And it was a hit. And so the next year they went live and did a real event in a physical location with people in the audience just like you. And it grew. Every year they continued to do it, and more people were able to safely, courageously share their stories and inspire the audiences. Then came 2020. We all know what happened. And in 2021, I got the chance to take this stage. Now, I've always loved this stage. I am a musician by trade, and the very first time I spoke was in the 6th grade at my DARE graduation, so I've just dated myself. Anybody remember the DARE program? Yep, right? So, and I loved it. I was hooked. Consequently, that was the same year I started performing on musical instruments. So my love of the stage and of connecting with people from a stage through any means really started when I was 11. And so fast forward, 2021, I had just moved here in September of 2020. I didn't know very many people, but somehow I got connected with Rakshana, and she was like, hey, I have this event. And I said, please let me in. So I got up and I shared my story, and I knew in that moment that the healing power of telling our stories was too strong to ignore. So 2022 came around. We didn't have an event that year. There were some things that happened, and it just wasn't feasible to do. But 2023, Rakshana and I got together. I think we were driving somewhere together and just having a conversation in the car. And I said, we need to bring this back, and we need to add some coaching and really dive deep with our speakers to say, hey, you have a story. Even if you think you don't, you have a story, and that story can inspire someone. So we brought it back, and 5 very brave souls had faith in us that we could coach them to the stage, and we did. And that was our first event back in 2023. And Mickey, who's here in the audience tonight, allowed us to hold it at her former place of business, which I appreciate so very much. And from there, we've grown. We've grown to this location, multiple events per year in multiple cities, continuing to coach courageous individuals and sharing their stories in a way they'd never thought that they would or that they never thought possible, with not only the goal of inspiring audiences, but allowing them to heal through the process. Telling your story is like approaching a door, opening the door, walking through that door, and then closing it behind you and locking it. You become a new version of yourself. You get to step into what's next for you, and that's why we do this event. So tonight we have 4 amazing ladies who have said, I'm ready to walk through that door. I'm ready to close the door on the old version of me and embrace the new version, who is healing from past traumas, who is daring to try new things, and who's ready to inspire audiences. So with that, once again, thank you for being here, and I will introduce our first speaker this evening. Our first lucky lady to take the stage is Gina Terwilliger Mercado. And I don't have bios memorized, so I'm gonna just read the first couple lines. Gina is an author, a poet, and a tutor whose work sits at the intersection of story, learning, and healing. And I really don't need to say anything else, because when you hear her talk, you will see exactly what I mean by that. So without further ado, Gina, please come up here. Everyone welcome Gina to the stage. There you go. All right, my dear.
All right, I'm just gonna put this guy right here, maybe? How's that? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so I need to start with a quick calming technique that I've developed for my students, but I sort of need for myself. Just let me get through that real quick. Shoreline. I sat along the river, gentle waves lulling my thoughts, grains of soft sands rubbing my heels as I watched some ducks dive and resurface. Dive and resurface, dive and resurface like the swirl of ideas and conversations, emotions breaking the shoreline of my life. It's been like that for me, a watching, a waiting, as I work to assemble parts of me into wholeness. I'm confident and capable, yet uncertain and self-doubting. I'm quiet and gentle, yet required to be assertive and persistent. I'm intelligent and creative, yet need to belong and be loved. When I was in first grade, I had what I thought was a clever fashion idea to wear one part of my hair down. So after my mom brushed it, I told her, you don't need to put in the second band. And she said, it's going to look uneven. I said, I know, I want it to. So to her credit, after checking that I was saying what I wanted, she let me go. I walked to school just comfortable as could be with one half of my hair up, the other long blonde half down. So when I got to school, a classmate, told me I looked very pretty, but looks like maybe you lost one of your ponytail holders, maybe when you were walking to school or something. She said it so tactfully, and I remember assessing the situation and deciding I didn't really need to explain my choice, so I just said, oh. She gave me a hairband, a brown headband that her sister had given her, and I remember thinking that I should accept it. It was a genuine offer and something that should be acknowledged. What happened was it began a slow erosion of sharing my creativity, of speaking up, of asserting that I know who I am and what I'm doing. So that in fourth grade, when a classmate felt the need to prove his masculinity to an alpha in our friend group, by smashing my brand new Stars and Stripes lunchbox that had a nice carrying strap and a thermos that could stand up. I could only stand there on the playground looking at both boys that I almost always beat in contests, wondering where the teacher was. I got a new lunchbox the next day, but what I didn't get was an apology, nor did I receive any guidance for how to handle these types of situations. I understood the situation, but I had chosen that lunchbox and it was the only one at the store. So that in seventh grade, I excitedly walked out of science classroom and greeted my friend and said, hey, guess what? And I proceeded to impart all this exciting science information that I had just learned. She wasn't very impressed. She called me crazy, and I was like, no, mister. She wasn't interested. So that in 12th grade, I lost a college scholarship challenge to a friend who could articulate her response with more ease than I could. My body has always known that there is something I'm accepting that I don't need to. A tummy ache when a teacher isn't exactly kind or understanding, a sore throat when a friend becomes an occasional bully, a flu when it all becomes overwhelming. Experiences turn my nervous system into a vigilance where safety became complicated rather than assumed. A friend who pushed my head at a water fountain, an adult in authority giving me unsolicited, unwanted attention, a spouse whose anger crossed the line into harm. Sleepless nights before new events, scanning scenes for exit points, swallowing complaints and not being able to eat. The exhaustion of living appeared as a weakness for me to overcome until I found information about regulation techniques and began actually applying them. I began to breathe with intention, to direct my nervous system into alignment so that my body is guiding me rather than betraying me. I discovered that listening to the body is not a single act, but a relationship based on patience, curiosity, and trust. I froze when my friend smashed my new lunchbox, when my friend pushed me, when my friend choked me, and my voice began to waver as the persistence in me still wanted to assert my truth. My neck began shaking as I still wanted to speak up for what I deserve. Cherished. I don't want to have to earn my keep. I want to be kept safe, a modern-day relic of everlasting love and adoration by one who has learned how to handle a delicate piece of art. I've lived much of my life in survival mode, getting through days of being ignored, waiting for someone's anger to subside, making sure others' needs were met as much as I could, despite feeling I had nothing to offer. There's been frustration with wondering why I became last, why I was not enough. Occasionally, when perhaps at a loss for words, my mom would ask aloud, "What is wrong with you?" Well, she probably didn't realize that I'd internalized that and used it for a checklist for why people didn't show up for me, why those I love keep me in the back of their thoughtfulness. When she died at home, arranging her exit as best she could, the rug I'd begun to weave underneath me during my 15 years of widowhood began to unravel. It tossed me into an uncertainty. I felt like I was in a bouncy house with a full bladder. I wrote a booklet of poems for her, and that helped me feel what I wanted to feel, to process some emotions and address some of the losses. And I've since then embraced that grief is an it's not unwanted, it's unfinished love, actually. And I'm very lucky to have had people in my life that I don't think I will never grieve again. However, the untethering brought about some physical symptoms, resulting in an opted-in ovarian surgery this past year that left me with some unresolved motherhood, core emotions, and insecurities that I've been addressing as I recover. It also left me further in the hole I'd been digging into houselessness. While lying in the back of my CRV, I pondered how humans have always been trying to survive on the daily. Some of us with better shelter, some of us with stronger communities, and some of us with wiser outlooks. I recognize that, one, I don't have to feel less than in order to belong, and in fact, I belong enough to warrant shelter and protection. Two, I can accept myself and belong to the address that is myself. Despite sleeping in temporary spaces and living in fears of not enough, there is nothing wrong with me such that I'm unacceptable. Each morning I wake up is a morning for me to be. Dawn. Morning has broken, but my spirit is not renewed. I'm not shamed into feeling. Morning has broken, and I'm alive in the ruins of yesterdays. Dawn has arrived as a friend lost in an overnight semblance of stardust, welcoming my concerns as sprinkles and twinkles left from the meteor of my emotional bag of rocks knocking, plonking along my rickety skeleton's closet. Dawn has arrived into a new chance to walk tall and true, full of virtue and resolve, to leave the burdens I carry tied in a tidy cloth wrap called past. I've recently begun painting uncapping some stifled creativity these past 2 years. I'm no means a skilled artist like my incredibly talented offspring, but I'm becoming skilled in an artistry of my own. I heard you, Rana. Having walked through such discomfort as shame, trauma, loss, I know there is another side to everything. So I reclaim my creative self and offer it, even if it is to 10 people on social media or one of my 4 kids. But also, just this past year alone, I've had a poetry piece displayed in an art gallery, 2 paintings sold at a fundraiser, and posted myself singing my own composition. Pushing myself, supporting myself is my next level of caring for others. What I have to say matters. Who I am matters. I'm a tutor because I love watching understanding arrive in the eyes of another person. I'm a poet because words insist. And I'm a mother because I adore seeing life unfold. These all add up to the gentle soul that is Gina. There's more. But thank you. My life has found that revelations rarely come with fanfare. They arrive on a vineyard patio with herbal tea and gentle poses that recall origins of neck pain and tears of betrayal. They arrive with the sweeping of pine needles on a deck that clears space for the joys of everyday living. They arrive at open mics where everyone has a say. Mainly, I find them sitting at rivers, walking through trails, chatting with people at coffee shops. A revelation of significance for me came as I wrote my thoughts that might turn into this speech. I was fortunate enough to have many opportunities to swim growing up, and this metaphor came to me as I wondered why it seems that nobody wants to hear me. I was feeling a little let down by the limited number of shares my post and work get, my unanswered text messages to family. When I got a picture of diving into the deep end of a pool and the weight of treading underwater alone. That loneness, that singular space where nobody else is there to interfere with what you're doing, seemed so profound to me because I understood that I'm not a mess around in the shallow end kind of person. I like deep. I like exploring boundaried unknowns. So, not everyone is going to swim with me. It's up to me to find my way to the top so that I can breathe. Even if my throat is scratchy from the chlorine I accidentally swallowed on my way up. My voice is allowed to speak where it needs to and where it chooses. So now I hum more frequently, both as a practice to warm up my vocal cords and settle my nervous system, as well as just because I like making sounds and I can. I feel like I lost a page. Excuse me. Just this. Destiny is a road offering choices of places I've been, places I'll go, with a clear start, a straight shot into an unknown, guided from above, as I stroll along, certain in my uncertainties. I'm aware that what I know now can change tomorrow. Living is change. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my neck shaking like leaves on a windy day, or my stomach burbling like a brook on a small forest hike, if it means I'm approaching something that matters to me. I'm getting better at acknowledging those signs. They're reminders for me that I'm part of life that seeks growth and awareness. I'd like to share my latest painting that I call Feelings, because painting it allowed me to unstick some emotions that I couldn't name. It allowed me to open up some pain that was beginning to settle back into my body. I didn't want that. So here we go. Thank you. I'll put that right there. I've lived seasons of being unheard and undervalued, of surviving rather than living well. I've carried grief, guilt, and shame. As I unwrap these patterns and rewrite my story's lines, I realize I'm not here to perform perfection. I'm here to practice truth. I invite you to take a deep breath with me. Thank you. Retreat. Did you know who was hiding underneath all of the pain and shame? Where have you been, my you, my me? There's a we of you and me, and I'm glad I've found the me that I have sought. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Gina. One more round of applause for Gina, please. Awesome. Before I bring up our next speaker, I want to tell you a little bit about how they got here. So the Confidence Catalyst, as I mentioned, has evolved from its initial iteration. Whatever it was when it started, it is not that anymore. We have a coaching component. So I've been working with these 4 ladies for about 8 weeks now, give or take a week. And that has allowed me to really get to know them and to build a strong relationship with them and really see behind the curtains of who they are. And honestly, that's the best part. For me, that is what I really love. Like I mentioned, I love connecting with people and really figuring out who they are, what their strengths are, what makes them tick, and what they're afraid of. And Gina, I hope you don't mind me sharing, was quite anxious about coming up on the stage and telling her story. And her quiet energy is a superpower. If you think your voice is quiet and you think that that makes you not fit for the stage, you are wrong. Soft energy, calm energy is inviting. It forces us to lean in to each other and to listen and connect. So I'm so proud of Gina. She did amazing. If you knew where we started and how we got here, you would be amazed. So again, thank you so much, Gina, for that. Spending 8 weeks together is not enough, in my opinion. I feel like we could spend months and months together and continue weaving together stories of who we are. But alas, we only have a few weeks to get here to this stage in which our speakers get 20 minutes to weave that story together. So that's, we can't be here all night, right? Because we could share stories all night long, but that's how we get here. So if you are someone who thought, wow, this looks really cool, maybe I want to do that, that's part of it. You get coached and you get guidance through the process to get here. So our next speaker, who is a very dear friend of mine, we do so many things together. There are 4 of us in this room when we just kind of go around as a group, almost like we're 4 pieces of the same person together. And Amanda is one of the 4. She is a quarter of the amazingness that is the RAD, R-A-A-D, team. And she is also our wonderful videographer for this event. So when you all get the recording, that is all her. But she, earlier this year, said, hey, I think I'm ready. And I was so happy when she said that. So Amanda Goff is our visual branding extraordinaire, super creative, amazing videographer, but more importantly, fantabulous human, amazing friend, wonderful mother, new grandmother. Yes, exciting. And here tonight to share her personal story for the first time, Amanda Goff.
The stand, yeah. It'll be a little easier for me. A little wobbly? That's okay. We'll make it work.
All right, you put that where you want.
Okay, no, that works. Have you ever had the wind knocked out of you? Not just physically, but emotionally. The moment when something happens that takes your breath away, and not in a romantic way, but like a guttural, physical, emotional way. That moment when you're gasping for air and nothing feels like it's working. For me, breath used to mean rhythm. It meant movement. It meant the flow of music, the pulse of being alive. From a young age, I was drawn to rhythm. The rhythm of music, the rhythm of movement, the rhythm of film, the rhythm of life. Dance was my first language. It's how I expressed myself. And I loved the way the body flowed, the beat of the music, the perfect harmony between breath and motion that comes together when you dance. And there's a rhythm to everything we create, and it mirrors the rhythm that's inside of us. It mirrors our heartbeat, it mirrors our breath, and it can mirror our pace. And as I grew older, that rhythm followed me into the creative world. I found it behind the camera. I found it in storytelling. I found it in speaking. And the art that I get the honor to do to create and capture emotion and energy of others. My life had a natural tempo. It was busy, but creative, full of purpose, until it didn't. What happens when rhythm is disrupted? When you lose control of something so sacred as your own breath. During a missions trip to Costa Rica in the early 2000s, something happened to me that would change my life forever. I had a health crisis while I was there. One that left me gasping for air, literally. And I felt like I had drowned, and I learned later that my brain believed that I had. I had gone to bed that night dealing with a kidney stone. Unfortunately, that was something it wasn't foreign to me. And I was prepared for the pain. I was prepared for doing all the things I needed to do to pass that kidney stone. But what I wasn't prepared for was how that night my body would react to the pain in a way that it never had before. I woke up with a gasp. I felt like I had come up from being underwater too long. And I immediately felt that something was off, but I was in a position that I needed to keep my composure. I had a room full of girls, high school girls, that were on this missions trip that I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to panic. And I just had to deal with that moment. And I did. I got medication in the morning. I did all the things I needed to do. I started to mend. But I didn't understand truly what had happened that night. And I still felt like I didn't know quite what had happened in the sense of why my body reacted that way. When I returned home, I knew I wasn't the same person that had left a month prior, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And my dear husband also noticed, but at the time, he wasn't sure how to bring up the topic. He wasn't sure how to explain to me that the wife that had left, the mother that had left to go do something amazing, came back very different. So we both struggled separately for several months, thinking I was going crazy. And it wasn't until a literal chain of accidents that I discovered that I had a brain injury. My son and I had been in a car accident where he was severely injured. And after a long night of making sure my son had gotten through surgery and he was safe, I realized my head was killing me. And I complained. And that's when the hospital staff realized they actually hadn't even checked in on me because there was so much going on with my son. And of course, I, in that mode, had put him first and didn't even think about myself. So they swiftly took me to get a CT scan and took several doctors kind of looking at things, and then the technician and the doctor came to me and they asked me, had I ever drowned? Which I promptly said no, because in the moment that I hadn't drowned. I never had that as part of my history. But it didn't take long for things to snap into place. And the fact that my brain showed trauma of drowning was an answer that I had been struggling to figure out. My brain, my body, in that moment of gasping for air in response to pain, had the same reaction and the same impact as if I had drowned underwater. So, this answer did not solve everything, but it was at least a name for my experience. And it gave me a reason for why I felt so off, but it did not change where I had been, struggling. My world felt fractured. My identity was uncertain because I had thought I was going crazy. My confidence was completely gone. There's something deeply unsettling when you cannot trust your own body, you cannot trust your own mind, and you lose that rhythm of life that had defined who you were. I had panic attacks. I was all of a sudden claustrophobic. I was overwhelmed, and I still felt a deep sense of loss. But through all of the chaos, one small thing, in addition to my faith in God, became my anchor, and that was my breath. When everything spun out of control, I could focus on one inhale and one exhale. This new rhythm became my way back to myself. And it didn't fix everything overnight, but it helped me find a sense of calm, even just for a few seconds. And those seconds grew longer, and eventually this turned into more confidence in my body. And breath became my bridge between who I was and who I was becoming. So here's what I learned through this journey. When we're anxious, we hold our breath. When we're afraid, we forget to breathe. When we feel unworthy, when we feel crazy, when we feel lack of confidence, we shrink back into ourselves and our breath becomes shallow. Breath is life. It is presence. It is so important, obviously, and intrinsic to who we are because we need it for life. But it's even more than that. It reminds us that we're still here, that we matter. Learning to consciously breathe again, to find rhythm in chaos, helped me reconnect my body, my creativity, and my worth. And here's the beautiful part. It's something we all have access to. We all have access to being able to stop and breathe. Breath can help us calm, but it also can help us focus, and it also can help to energize. It's something that truly we have the ability to focus on and control. And even today, when I work with people, especially when I'm photographing people, I start by inviting them to take a deep breath. So if you've ever been photographed by me, that is something that I promise I do a little bit of breath work, I always tell people, because the moment changes when someone takes a deep breath. You can see it physically. You can see it physically when someone's holding their breath. You can see it physically when they let go. Shoulders drop, eyes soften, the jaw softens, and there's a moment where they let go. And suddenly, their real self can show up, even just for a second. A single breath can unlock the most authentic part of who we are. And that's what breath has taught me. And that's what it continues to teach me. So right now, I want to invite you all to take a deep breath with me. We'll do that again. I want you to feel the air as it's filling your lungs. And then exhale. Continue to do this. Breathe in. And if you feel inclined, let it out even loudly. There's something very, very freeing about intentionally breathing. Take a big breath right now, and I want you, if there's anything that's been sitting heavy on you or anything that's been bothering you, breathe it in, breathe it out, and let it go. Breath is proof of life. But breath is also proof that you belong here. You are worthy, not because you've earned it, but because you've proven it, simply by the fact that you exist. So breathe. Find your rhythm, and remember that everything about who you are, all your experiences, all your ups, all your downs, everything that makes up who you are, your story, embrace this and find that rhythm and breathe. Thank you.
It's uncanny, really. The speakers don't hear each other's talks before this event. They haven't even met until today. And somehow or other, every single time we do this, there's common threads between their talks. I don't know why that happens. I don't know how that happens, but it astounds me every single time. So you'll notice the connection between Amanda and Gina talking about breath. There are other recurring themes that you'll hear in the second half that I don't want to give away yet, but it just once again shows me the power of really digging into who we are and healing through what we've been through and sharing those things. So before we break for a short intermission, I want to tell you more about this event because I find that I always forget to do that and everyone is walking away going, that's really cool, but I want to know more. So you'll see our speakers speak in a variety of ways. And what I mean by that is some will have written cue cards. Some will have a fully printed copy of the talk that they wrote that they can use as a roadmap. Some will use the stand, some won't. Some will hold the mic, some won't. And that's by design. Too often, especially the ladies in the room, we think that we have to reach this certain level of perfection, of awesomeness. There is this standard that we have to meet before we are worthy of hopping on a stage like this and speaking into a microphone. And I am the expectation breaker because one of the very first things that I say to anyone that works with me is just be the speaker you are right now. Nobody gets up here a pro. Everyone has their first time. The first time I did this, I was so nervous. I had notes printed and still forgot to read half of them. And now, because I've done it so much, I just get up here and talk. And that's just by doing. We get better at things simply by doing them. We don't get better by thinking, oh, someday I'm going to be like Tony Robbins and then I'll be able to get on stage. No, you won't be like Tony Robbins unless you get on the stage and you be you now. But don't be Tony Robbins, be you. You will always be a second best someone else, but you can be a first-rate you. So you get up here as you are. If you're shaking, it's fine. If you're nervous, it's fine. If you need to read word for word off of your notes, fine. Just look up once in a while, right? Nobody knows what you've written down. And this is what I help our speakers to realize and to really internalize is nobody knows what's on that paper. Nobody knows what you meant to say. They only hear the message that you leave them with. And that's the power of this event. Not only inspiring you guys, but also to allow them to realize just how awesome they are and how much courage and bravery and strength lies within them to get up here. I can't see you guys really, like I can see the silhouettes of your heads kind of, but it doesn't mean that I'm not nervous, right? Like getting up here and thinking, oh my God, there's 25 people staring at me. It can really mess with your head. But when you just get up here and think, we're among friends here. This is a conversation. Speaking is a conversation. It's not me talking at you. It's us interacting. It's you laughing when somebody says something funny. It's you nodding your head when you go, oh, I relate to that. It's you saying, wow, when somebody says what they've been through. So that's more about what we do here. It really is a process, and the journey is the fun part. This is the scary part for some people, but they get up here and do it anyway. The journey to get here is where all of the beauty lies. So with that, I'll tell you more in the second half. So available back there at the bar for you, drinks, water, tea, coffee, hot chocolate. All right. All right. Yeah. All right, you can go ahead and kill the house lights real quick. Awesome. All right, everybody, welcome back to the second half. We have 2 more speakers ready to share their stories with you. How are we feeling so far about the first half and the incredible stories we're hearing? Good? Good. Yes. Yes, it's no small thing to get up here and kind of bare your soul to strangers or not strangers. Sometimes it's scarier to talk to people you know than it is to be vulnerable with people you don't know because they won't judge you, right? They'll just think, oh my God, that's so awesome, or wow, that's crazy. But people that know us have biases about us, and they already have these notions of who we are and what they expect of us. And so it can be much more frightening to bare your soul in front of your children or your partner or your siblings or parents or whoever that might be for you. So again, it takes a lot of courage to get up here, and I know from personal experience just how shaky you can be. You can feel like your voice is shaking, your hands are shaking, everything's shaking, and yet you get up here and do it anyway. And there's a lot of strength and power in that. So again, thank you all for being here to support our very courageous speakers. And I will bring up our next speaker. Brenda is someone I've known for quite a while. I met her shortly after I moved here, right around the time I met Rakshana. And I know that she spoke in one of the very early versions of the Confidence Catalyst. And she reached out to me a few weeks ago and said she was ready to come back and share more of the story, because that's the thing about our stories is they don't end when we share them, right? They just keep being written as we live, as we experience things, as we unpack more things that we've lived through, and life continues to happen. Our stories continue to be written every single day. So back tonight with the more recent edition of her story is Brenda Kiamani.
Community. What is community to you? Who is community to you? Maybe it's your tribe, your family, friends, associations. Maybe it's your team. For me, it was my family. From loss, from childhood to business, and from loss to leadership. Community for me has evolved over the years. Maybe it has for you too. Community has given me a chance to learn to lead, and it now gives me the opportunity to lead others. My leadership method is SWIM: strategy, wisdom, initiative, and mentorship. Why did I choose SWIM? Well, I was thinking about how I almost drowned trying to save my brother-in-law and how we all worked together and somehow managed to all survive. But as I thought about it more, I realized that my first family and community were my parents and my grandparents. They had shown me the swim method, even though we didn't call it that at the time. They were teaching me how to navigate life's challenges, just like we navigated those dangerous waters. Strategy. My parents showed me this method in action, demonstrating that just keeping your end goal in mind while taking the next step is all that leadership requires. Let me show you what this looked like. My dad's childhood was unstable. His parents moved constantly, oftentimes leaving him with Grandma Rachel for months at a time and not sending enough money to provide for them. They survived on beans and ham that she always had cooking on that little wood stove in the shack that they lived in. My dad swore he'd never eat beans and ham after that. Any Dr. Seuss fans? I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like beans and ham. They're just not my jam. Tired of depending on his parents, he dropped out of high school. And he went to work at the plywood mill. He worked there all of my childhood. Then when he married my mother, his strategy was simple: build stability for the family. Everything he did flowed from that strategy. He didn't complain. He found a way through. And later you'll see how I borrow this kind of stubbornness to make it through when life gets just a tiny bit challenging for me and for my own family. Wisdom. Wisdom is learning from the past, applying it to the future. My father noticed something different about my mom's parents. They had moved from Minnesota, built a little 3-bedroom rambler on 104 acres. They raised 6 kids and lived there through the end of their lives. They had the kind of stability that my father had only dreamed of. My grandfather, he was always giving us tractor rides and showing us what he was doing on the farm. Oftentimes, we were riding the tractor, just holding on for dear life. But it was really amazing to be able to watch my grandparents and my parents to live that life and learn how to grow up on a farm. But my father learned from both families that stability is better than constant change. Initiative. What happens next is my dad, knowing what his end goal is, to have kids who understand responsibility and the value of hard work, he watched this, watching my uncles and my mom work on the farm where they learned their responsibility. So he goes and decides to buy some sheep so that we could learn how to be responsible too. I'm not really sure if he really recognized how much that one decision would affect my life, but isn't that how it works? Each small step building on the next. Mentorship. This is where my mom stepped in. She became a 4-H leader. In 4-H, we learned how to raise animals, track expenses. Running the farm was like running a small business. We were giving real responsibility. And in 4-H, there was something really special. The adults, they were there guiding and supporting, but we got to be the leaders in the room. We got to teach the classes and mentor the younger kids. My mom understood something crucial about mentorship. It's not just about teaching skills, it's about creating opportunities for others to discover their own capabilities. If you can handle sheep, you can manage anything, from children to finances. Strategy. When I got married, I joined my husband's tribe in Seattle, the Khmu. They are a tribal group from Laos. If you don't know where Laos is, it's between Vietnam and Thailand. They make some of the most amazing food that you're ever going to eat, and it's normal to gather together. Gathering together was just a way of life for us. So our daughter grew up surrounded by mentors and community. I was usually one of the first to volunteer for her field trips or outdoor camp because I knew that showing interest in her would be building her confidence. We gave her opportunities to learn responsibility too, helping her start her bunny business since we didn't have a place for sheep in the city. She opened her first bank account at 11, where she could learn about how to start managing money. We were teaching her to swim. Those family lessons had set the foundation. Things were going pretty well until May 2010, when everything changed. We had a big house in the big city with big toys and big loans to finance them all. I had been running my accounting business for a few years, and life was good. Then it happened. My husband lost his voice. At first, I thought, finally a little peace and quiet. But that didn't last very long. We thought it was a cold, but after seeing multiple doctors, hoping for simple explanations, the big scare turned into the big reality when the diagnosis came, stage 4 lung cancer. Terminal, most people don't live 5 years. We borrowed optimism, but we faced reality, and once again, remembered to swim. Wisdom. We invited the wisdom of our families and called a family meeting. That's what the Khmu do, and what my family also had often done. Initiative. We took initiative. We simplified our lives. We put our home on the market and moved to Happy Valley. Ironically, we moved to Happy Valley during one of the most difficult challenges, so why not just let your address do the smiling for you? My husband transferred his job to Portland. We had some cousins there, and his brother was a stay-at-home dad, so I knew I would have some help when things got bad. We'd also be 3 hours closer to my parents and my childhood home. We would have a place to belong, a community. Any of you remember faxing? Well, my clients from Seattle were faxing me paperwork while I was trying to build a business, take care of a sick husband, and a 12-year-old in a brand new town. And this was just a little bit too hard, so I decided to get a job. Then I noticed my husband was getting sicker, and I asked my employer if I could work from home. She refused. So what do you do when you're a leader? You strategize, you use the wisdom you have, and you take initiative. So July 2013, I gave notice, reopened my business, found a part-time position at Leading Edge. These guys, they were great. I enjoyed the way that they mentored their team and how they really cared about the people that were working with them. Wisdom. As my husband's health continued to decline, I knew that I might have to take some time off. But I couldn't just leave the company hanging. They'd been so very good to me. So I talked with the owners and asked if we could find someone I could mentor. They agreed. I would still be there, and we would have somebody who could take care of things and nothing would fall through the cracks if I needed to take time off. So we found Dennis, and I got to mentor the first person in business. This bright young man, he was full of enthusiasm and was such a joy to train. Mentoring him reminded me that we can be a light to others, even when something hard is happening to us. April 30th, 2014. That was the day I became a widow. Our community surrounded us. Family and friends rushed to our side. They came and stayed with us day and night for 5 nights and 5 days until we put his body to rest. Family and friends donated money. Each day we'd butcher a buffalo, a pig, or a steer so that we could feed them. There's eating, drinking, storytelling. It's a time of both laughter and of sadness. This is how Camus do community. They show up, they stay, and they share the load. Between the life insurance and Social Security benefits, I was blessed to be able to just work part-time as we adjusted to all the changes. I was now alone, raising a 15-year-old, living in those 4 walls where we had watched my husband die. I needed a change. So we moved into a different unit. It faced Mount Talbert. Mount Talbert is a nature reserve in the suburbs. It has hiking trails, wild bunny and deer. I love nature, and it was just what I needed, to look out the window, be able to look at the trees, sip my morning coffee, and contemplate life. I just shared with you how we navigated the 4 years of my husband's illness. But what I didn't share is over 6 years, I lost not only my husband, but my mother-in-law who had lived with us for 19 years, and my own father. My best friend wanted to get me out of the house to have a little fun, so we decided to check out this little club. I didn't plan to meet anyone, but she was tired of dancing. She pointed to him. "There's your dancing partner." I asked him to dance, and he joined our table for the rest of the night. That was the day I met Leon. I gave him my number, but when he actually called to ask me out, I kind of freaked out. What will people think of me if I go on a date so soon? I turned him down. Now, after having second thoughts, I called him back. After all, it is a woman's prerogative to change her mind. I'm sure glad I did, because he's still my best friend and life partner 11 years later. He's originally from St. Louis, makes the best barbecue in town, and if you get an invite to our house, let me tell you, you're not going to want to miss it. Rebuilding the business is a part of the story that some of you here in this room are, and many in the greater Portland area and our community are part of. I took my time getting back into business after doing absolutely what I had to for a few years. In the meantime, technology and then the industry had changed, so I had to catch up. I started attending industry conferences, taking classes online, and I went to my first networking events. I got my first customers. They took a chance on me while I was still finding my feet again. I had to keep swimming like a determined rubber duck. I kept bobbing back up no matter how many waves life threw at me. I met Rakshana, Brenda Bryan, and joined a mastermind. I did my first speakers event here with this group. I told the story just a little bit differently, showed a lot of pictures of all the amazing people who were with us along the journey. I know it's a heavy story, but I wanted them to see the joy too. What I want you to know is that my story is not a story of defeat. It's a story of hope and overcoming. Many of us will face something along the way. I want you to know that you will face those things, but you're going to make it through. I want you to reach out to others right now. Build your community so that when that time comes, you have those people to depend on. When you need to have somebody to borrow optimism from, my amazing daughter. We had bought a house during this time, and my daughter was now 18. She's going to college, and surprise, Mom, I'm pregnant. I was not expecting this, but as parents, it's our job to see our kids know how to fend for themselves, which I wanted for her. Now, this girl, she's 4'11". She gave birth in February of 2018 by C-section to a beautiful 9-pound, 11-ounce baby girl. Now, you'd think that might earn her a hall pass on some homework, but nope. She handed in her assignments just like she had a newborn assistant, all of them on time. She and Fernando lived with me while they saved money to buy a house. She was going to college, caring for baby, and she was working with me in the accounting business. I thought this was my chance to mentor her. But honestly, she was really teaching me a thing or two. She had amazing determination. Now, in 2021, they bought that house. And then, because why not double the chaos, they bought another one a few years later and rented out the first. I'm proud of my daughter and Fernando for constantly chasing their dreams with a toddler in tow who's now 7. Now, as for Fernando, he became a diesel mechanic. He often takes their daughter out to the shop or up on the roof, showing her how to make repairs, just like my dad did with me. There's either grease or glitter on them. They added a little boy in June this year, and I get to watch them mentor him too. Our business was growing. We realized we were doing it, building a business. We needed a bigger team. So we hired Sitlali, my daughter's sister-in-law. She was halfway through her BA in accounting. I wasn't quite sure about hiring another family member, but it's worked out great. Now it's Alyssa's turn to start mentoring. And Alyssa did an amazing job. I am so amazed at both these young ladies. Sitlali finished her degree, and we brought her on full-time in 2023. We are again adding to our team. Now, guess who gets to mentor? Yep, Sitlali does. Today, my business thrives because of the culture of mentorship that we've created. My name might be on the business license, but it's our business. My dream is to pass it on to them so that this culture continues. You see, this is how swimming not only gets you to your goal, but helps you to get others to theirs as well. Look around the room. This is your community. We have so much wisdom to share. I know this firsthand. I've worked with a number of you as mentors, maybe some as clients. Each of you have navigated challenges, made difficult decisions, learned from failures, celebrated victories. Each of you has something to share to somebody else who's just starting their journey or who's facing something that you've already overcome. So I'm going to ask you again, what is community to you, and who is community to you? For me, community is what's kept me afloat. It keeps me swimming even when I felt like I was going to drown. Leadership is not about swimming alone. It's about helping others learn to swim alongside you. Who will you take with you as you swim into the future? Take a moment. Think about who you can take with you. And raise your hand if you can just think of one person that you can reach out to this week to encourage them.
So our last speaker is joining us all the way from Utah this evening. She flew in this morning, she's leaving tomorrow, but she felt called to join us and share her story for the first time, I might add. So Anahi is from Northern Utah. She is a designer, an author, and an entrepreneur. She has a very powerful story. So I will let her come up and share that with you. Anahi, are you out there somewhere? There she is. I see her if I block the lights. All right, everybody welcome to the stage, Anahi. Do you want the stand?
I'll move it. Yeah, okay. I'll move it. Hi. Hi. So excited. I know I'm going to trip over this, so I'm going to get out of my way. All right. I'm never going back. Have you guys ever heard that before? I'm never going back to that movie. I'm never going back to that restaurant. I'm never going back to that guy's house or that girl's house. I'm never going back. Well, for me, it was a little bit different. I'll fast forward to today. Right now, we're remodeling my house. And that's what I do. I'm a designer. I structurally design homes and I remodel them, but I haven't done mine for 17 years. Well, the reason why it started the way that it did is because a familiar feeling, a familiar personality reappeared in my life, one with a different body. And my body instantly started to feel anxious again, and a feeling of fear came over me. And that day I came home and I looked at my 16-year-old, who's the last one that's staying in my house. And I said, that's it, we're remodeling the entire house. We're gonna do it this time. I've said it 3 other times before that, nothing's happened. He said, okay, we're gonna start on Monday. He owns a small handyman company, him and his friends. So Monday, they started packing the entire house. Now typically, I would pack the house myself, but this time I didn't care. This time I did not care what was going in the boxes. All I asked them to do was label it. Label the boxes so I know where they're gonna go next afterwards. That's what they did, and I didn't help them. They packed the entire house for me, one room at a time. I just wanted to get it done. It took them a week. And then they went from one room at a time, starting in his bedroom. And I'm gonna walk you through the house. So you come in through the front door, and there's a living room, and then you've got a kitchen,
dining room, and then you go into the hallway area where his bedroom lies, my son's old room lies, and my room is at the very end. So they started this way. They packed the room. Once it was done packing, they started painting it. And the room was covered in, it was like a coloring book when I first moved into the house. My kids were very small, I have 3 boys. And it was like everything was outlined in dark colors, and then it just went lighter towards the center. So it looked like a coloring book. And it had been like that their entire life. And it was time. It was time for them to paint it. But I was never going back. And so they did it. They started to move through each room, and they first taped everything up, and then they started to paint it all white. And then they moved to the next room where my son used to stay. And then they did the same thing to that one. They taped it all up, and they started to paint it. Now, I used to paint, and I'm pretty OCD about how, and the method of how you paint something so you don't have to keep redoing it. But this time I just didn't care. I just didn't want to go back. And I knew that there is no other way to teach your child how to do something but just to let them do it themselves, right? So they just painted it. If there was something that bothered me, I just walked away. I didn't care anymore. As we're walking down the hallway, my room was next. It was the last room that needed to be done. And it wasn't a room that they could pack. I wasn't going to allow it. It was a room that I needed to do on my own. It was the last room that ever got taken care of. It was a room that never got remodeled. It carried every single memory that I went through in the last 17 years. And my kids were not allowed to pack it. This was my way of proving myself that I was done and I wasn't going to go back. I had become the architect of my own life, and I wasn't going to be not the tenant of somebody else's chaos. It took me a week, because I would go into that room and I would pull out the clothes out of one drawer and stack it on my bed, and then I would leave the room because I would get emotional, and I would come back and then just put everything back in the drawer in a different order. And I thought that was going to be okay. Well, my son goes back and forth from my ex-husband's house. That week, he came back and he said, "Mom, we need to get your room done so that we can do the rest of the house." He's like, "You need to get this done." I said, "Okay." I said, "I will get it done tonight. It's my goal." So he said, "Okay." He's like, "We're going to start painting it. We're going to paint it anyways, whether it's done or not." I said, "Okay." So he left, and I packed it all in one day. At first, I started with picking through everything. Did I want to keep it? Do I want to get rid of it? Do I want to sell it? That type of scenario. And then it was taking me so long to make one decision on one article of clothing. I was having an argument with myself. You guys ever had an argument with yourself? I don't care if I haven't worn them for 6 months. I might need them, right? Finally, I threw everything in a box. I have an assistant. Her name's Ray. And I'm like, "Ray, you and I, together, we're going to do this." So I gave her an empty box, gave myself an empty box, and I'm like, "Just fill it. I don't care what's inside of it. Just put everything in that box that you can fill it, and then tape it up, and let's take it out of the room." And we did. Took us an entire day, packed up the entire room. And I felt not completely liberated, but I felt empowered. I felt as though I have finally accomplished something that was so hard for me to do. And it wasn't just it wasn't the physical appearance that was affecting me. It was the internal struggle that I had been going through for so long. Let me tell you why. I'm never going to go back again. This particular person that sparked this trauma inside me, this memory that I feared that I would ever experience again. When I saw him and I felt what I felt, I walked into my home and saw all of the memories that my past had given me. I mean, it's a long time. I saw my little kids playing in the living room, and I saw them running back and forth, but that's not all I saw. I saw the broken floor and the holes in the wall. As I walked down the hallway, my door had been kicked in 3 times, and the 3rd time I didn't replace it. So instead of replacing it, with my own skills, I super glued the door shut because it was a hollow door. Panels had fallen apart, so I super glued it shut. And then I put screws in it. And that door every single day reminded me of the trauma I went through in that room. So, when I came home and I said, I'm not going back, I had to get rid of every single memory that was holding me down, that was bringing me back to what I had experienced. And maybe it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault that I had experienced that trauma. But I will never speak to him again. But I'm going to make sure that I don't feel that way when I walk into my house again, because I have worked so hard to get to where I'm at. Now, the room is completely painted. The bathroom's painted. The door's still there, but as you walk into the house, the feeling of the house is nothing but peace. Everything is still covered in plastic. We're not done, but I don't care. I've been sleeping in the living room couch for the past 3 days, and I don't care. I've never felt so much peace in my entire life. I didn't have curtains up, and we had this really, really huge window, and people can see on the inside, but I just didn't care. I had made a decision, and I started to act upon it for the first time in so long. So long. I'm going to tell you what I did to get here. It wasn't a decision that you could make just off the bat. It was a daily ritual of faith that transmutes hypervigilance into grounded confidence. It was putting my confidence in every single morning and talking to God. Every morning. He was the first one that I ever spoke to when I woke up. And then I would make and keep promises to myself on my health and my fitness. I came first now, and I've been coming first, and every single day for the past 3 years, I have made it a point to bring myself into a different person. And I'm here now, but that doesn't mean that my past doesn't come back. That doesn't mean that once you've healed completely, that you're not going to be tested again on the boundaries that you've set for yourself. And I've been tested. I have learned that it is not the action, it is the energy behind it. Had I packed my house a few years ago, I would have done it out of anger. It would have felt like something that I was forced to do. But these last few weeks, we were packing my house and it felt like victory. Like finally I was done. Finally, nobody else could tell me what to do. Nobody could tell me where to go. I've had so many people ask me, where are you gonna move to? I'm like, I don't know that I'm gonna move. I might not. I don't know. What I do know is presently, I am happy where I'm at. And I'm happy that I'm actually setting boundaries and moving towards those boundaries as though I believe in them. There is a saying that I had to tell myself, and I tell myself probably often. A friend of mine said, you either live in a hostile universe or you live in a friendly universe, and you have to decide which one you're going to live in. And for the longest time, I lived in a hostile universe. I didn't know that you could make a choice. And now, when I hear a door slam, or when somebody doesn't follow through on what they say, I get triggered. And it's not their fault, but I have to tell myself that I live in a friendly universe. It's okay, I live in a friendly universe. It's sad that I have to go there, but it has made me who I am right now. It's made it so that I don't react towards people the way I used to in the past, because I live in a friendly universe. It's not hostile. I had to learn to be in a relationship that honored my peace, my pace, and my purpose. If you do not agree with the boundaries that I've set, that's okay. I've learned to be alone. I've learned to live in peace. And I've learned that there is nothing that could ever convince me otherwise. Because I've been to hell. I know what that feels like. I had a friend ask me, what was the turning point? Why did you decide to all of a sudden put your feet down on the ground and say no more? And I said, well, it wasn't that. It was just one step at a time, one decision every single day, one choice at a time that brought me to the direction where I'm at. And every time I followed through with a promise I made to myself, it made me stronger. I live in a friendly universe. Now that I walk through the house, the memories are still there. I have cameras up. I've had cameras up for a while now. I have the doors locked. I have a Glock that sits not too far from the front door. If you guys don't know what a Glock is, it's a gun. My 22-year-old served in the Army for 4 years. He joined because of my situation, because of my marriage. He wanted to protect his mom. My kids. Thank God they didn't have to see some of the things that I saw. But they felt it. Everybody did. But they know, they feel the strength that comes from me now, though. Safety is not the absence of memory. Safety is the presence of boundaries. Right? I want to leave with you guys tonight with the understanding that we don't ever have to go back. I'm never going back. I've made that pretty clear in my actions, in the boundaries that I've set with the people that I have in my life. It's given me confidence. It's given me confidence to come stand in a room full of strangers on a stage for the first time. Yes. Thank you. Moving forward, as you think about all the ladies that spoke here on stage, I mean, we all have stories for a reason. I believe mine was to inspire, to have empathy, to be kind, and to show people that they can do it too, regardless how hard the situation is. So I leave you and I say, I'm never going back.